Hey, good Wednesday morning, and thanks for checking out your latest weather yield outlook here. We're going to start making this a Wednesday thing here for the season. I'm excited to kind of roll this out and talk about weather and yields as it relates to the corn and soybeans here across the country for the growing season. And this is going to be really what we want to do is take an approach of, what is the weather suggesting the crop conditions to be like? What is the weather suggesting the overall health of the crop, the outlook for how it's going to go and how everything's going to evolve from a weather perspective? This isn't a something for us to put skin in the game or, influence anything. It's simply an approach of what so many people are thinking, but are so nervous or afraid to say it sometimes, and I don't really know why that is and really don't particularly care. We think it's something that's of interest to people and something a lot of people are thinking about all the time. And it's something we've focused on heavily for the last almost 10 years. And so we want to roll out kind of our experience, our thought process with you every Wednesday on what's the weather saying that it's going to look like for the overall U.S. grain system and how it's going to look for everyone, all right? So first and foremost, obviously, we're still trying to plant. We're still trying to get crop into the ground. We're going to continue to talk about the planting outlook here going forward the next couple of weeks and then get into, more of an outlook on yield. But today I do have an updated summer forecast for you and yield research based on a weather approach. Again, this is not factoring in the type of seed that you grow or your position in the market or how your methods and your experience. This is weather and yields. That's it. All right. So some of you may love it and some of you may hate it. That's okay. If you do, share it with a friend. We'd love to spread the word here, right? So this is a look here this morning at Clarity, and this is our soil moisture. Whoops, sorry, my thing is stuck here. This is our soil moisture percentage profile here. This is kind of looking at, where is it dry, where is it wet, and we've seen dramatic improvements. This is a feature within Clarity you can access if you do sign up for the ag package. It runs $750 a year for videos like this every day and all kinds of tools inside the package here. But this is a look at the soil moisture anomaly in the soil moisture percentile index that so many people have really grown to love. This updates every day, and so it's a great tool to figure out where it's dry and where it's not dry. And we can still see where some rain is needed across especially Kansas, Oklahoma, and portions of Iowa. And we're going to continue to kind of add to that here in the coming days. One thing I do want to point out today that I am concerned with is a severe weather risk across the deep south central plains yet again, especially Oklahoma and into Texas. The biggest risk today is going to be the potential for significant large hail. All right, now we cannot rule out some tornadoes. The biggest concern today is going to be some of these thunderstorms producing large hailstones, and for that we have an enhanced risk for some severe weather. So I want to keep that in mind. In terms of rainfall for today, again, these are all tools inside of Clarity that you can access. Our 24-hour rainfall forecast map updates every hour. This is a look at rainfall the next 24 hours from 9 a.m. today to 9 a.m. tomorrow. And a lot of folks that need the rain are going to get it. Southwest Kansas, you're missing out on it. Unfortunately, I know you need the rain there. But you can see, again, an interactive invasive map that tells us how much rain we're going to anticipate here across the Central Plains over the next 24 hours. All right. With that said, too, what we want to look at is kind of targeting additional systems here in the coming days. All right. With that, the European model depicting a very active pattern. All right. Outside of 24 hours, as we get into Thursday evening, we'll watch this first system slide east Thursday evening into Friday. It's going to bring more rain and scattered thunderstorm chances into the Ohio Valley Friday evening across Michigan, Indiana. Scattered chances, but nonetheless locally or heavier downpours are certainly not out of the question. The next system takes shape pretty quickly in the Central Plains Saturday, bringing more rain to Nebraska, Kansas, and portions of Missouri throughout the day Saturday, and keeping scattered thunderstorm activity around in the Ohio Valley and in the Mid-Atlantic. Then yet again, another system comes Sunday in the south central plains, bringing yet more rain chances from Kansas, Oklahoma down to Texas. Okay, the east staying wet as well, with scattered thunderstorm chances all across the east. And that system works into the Ohio Valley Monday with more rain chances. So long story short, the next 5 to 6 days, several weather systems. Next week, in fact, day 6, we're already targeting a potential another severe weather episode that could bring strong thunderstorms and tornadoes. A strong low pressure system will come into the Dakotas, into Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, and up into the northern U.S. here next Monday into Tuesday, offering up another big storm system yet again there as well. Okay. And so, looking at this in terms of precipitation, probably the best approach right now is just to look at that European weather model over the next 7 days. And you can, again, just see how wet it's forecast to be across all of the main U.S. growing regions, with the exception of western South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, and the panhandle of Texas, where it can be drier in here, where there is a lack of precipitation. Everywhere else, 90% of the rest of the primary U.S. growing regions, you're going to continue to be looking at rain and heavy rain, potentially, again, possibly delaying efforts to get out into the field and get work done. All right. The other thing that could be doing that is also the potential at the continued colder temperatures. This pattern has really become to be a challenging one. Sorry, I'm trying to position you on my map here. It's not letting me stay there. But this is a look at the mid-May, early to mid-May plant outlook that we had here, that we put in our report this morning, in our long-range report. And again, you can see where we're targeting some issues potentially. I'm going to zoom in on this map. Stop jolting you around here. This right here is where we're still seeing the potential for there to be some additional late freeze risks with some of these stronger cold fronts. And the secondary line you see here is where there can still be some additional frost risks. So on top of the added wet pattern, where you see the frequent moisture and limited dry stretches here, all inside the green, we're still looking at colder temperatures being an issue here through at least the first 2 weeks of May. Okay, we do think things change and dry up the second half of the month, which I'll talk about more here in just a moment. All right, but regardless, nonetheless, it's an active pattern with several cold fronts and storm systems. In our reports, we do put targeted storm dates, cold fronts in the outlook, and you can see just about every 5 days we are looking at more. It's a frequent amount of storm systems and cold fronts in the picture here. I continue to paint May as an active month. The next 2 weeks, it at least will be warmer for about 90% of the grain belt, especially the further east you go. The eastern corn belt boding much warmer than the western. But that contrast in temperatures, the cold west and the warm east, make for a very active pattern nonetheless. So the next 2 weeks, it's warm for the most part versus the average, but it's also wet. And it's wet really everywhere versus the normal out through the first 2 weeks of May. Speaking of which, when we look at May in general, this is a look at the last 9 forecasts from the CFS V2 monthly that forecasts for the month of May. This model actually does not get enough credit. It does actually a really good job at the month ahead forecast. And you can see the consistency in the model's forecast overall for just a wetter central U.S. for the month of May for the most part. There are some indications. You can see it did trend wetter with time, but there are indications the Great Lakes and the East can turn drier, and that would happen mid-May and beyond. And some of the weekly products are hinting at that. So while May may start wet, it could end drier east, which is kind of the idea that the monthly model is trying to depict here. It's continuing the idea of warmer east, colder west in the northern plains. You can see as we got to the last run, it trended a tad cooler for that final forecast for the month of May. When we look at all of these seasonal models and their forecasts, zoom this out a little bit and turn this down so you can see it. They all have the general theme warm east, cooler west, and the general theme of a wetter than average U.S. grain belt. There's really no question about that. I think the bigger question becomes is there a mid-month, late-month pattern shift towards drier? Some of the thought processes right now would indicate that being possible as we go forward. But the European on the left, the GEFS and the CFS, which are both American models, again, all have generally the same theme for the May forecast of a wet and warmer east, cooler west type outcome. Our official May product, the end where the rubber hits the road, again, mid-month and beyond, I do think in through here, it can start to get drier than it was to start the month. So there is some encouraging signals there. But, obviously we're getting into late May, and the late planting can start to become a concern, especially when we're looking at rain shots every next several days here. So that is something to certainly keep in mind. We're keeping the overall theme of warmer east and then keeping it overall rather wet in the central grain belt. Still drier here, southwest Kansas. I am worried about the folks down there getting less rainfall, but replenishing rain in Iowa, Kansas, Minnesota areas, which will be encouraging to those folks. I want to talk about the seasonal forecast update real quick outside of getting outside of May. I've kind of covered that as much as I can without repeating myself too much. We're talking about ENSO, and ENSO is it La Nina or is it El Nino? And the easiest way for me to describe this is, are the waters in the equatorial Pacific Ocean colder or warmer than normal? Colder means La Nina. Well, this is the largest teleconnection driver or weather pattern driver in the world. So it's very important we look at this and we know, okay, what is this doing? This can tell us a lot about the seasonal forecast and what may happen. All right, well, you can see that there is certainly a decline from the Super El Nino that we were in, especially in the primary region, which is region 3.4. You can see a steady decline, and we're cooling the ENSO 3.4 waters. We were as warm as plus 2.1 back in December. It was very, very warm. Now we're down to 0.8. So we're seeing a clear transition downward there, all right? When we look at I want to go to the change map, the change in the weekly sea surface temperature departures over the last 4 weeks, we continue to note a couple of things. A, we're continuing to see a cooler trend here and a cooler trend here. The PDO right now, the latest value is minus 1.57. This would be one of the strongest negative PDOs and La Nina combinations we've ever seen. It's a rare combination, and it's not normal. In fact, some years, most recently, would be years like 1952 or 1973, which from a climate perspective probably are not even relevant at this point. The change, though, from April 24th to March 27th indicates these are both getting cooler, all right, which overall was a sign, in my opinion, of the La Nina continuing to develop, despite the noise and the chatter. The Eastern Pacific Upper Ocean weekly average temperature anomalies, they've flipped. They've flipped. It's an indication. When we look at the subsurface temperature departures, these are the temperatures of the waters beneath the surface of the ocean at the equator, okay? And I don't want to lose you here. I don't want to get too technical, but you can see on March 4th versus April 18th, the cold pool has dramatically grown and gotten colder. Once these waters surface, that's when the weekly values I've shown you, the temperature departures of the water will dramatically fall. And La Nina should start to rapidly onset as we get into June. All right, you can see that clear and plain as day in this analysis. So that is something that certainly is worth monitoring. The CFS model, listen, while even the people that run the CFS model may have their questions about this model at times, right now, in terms of its initiation and where it's at, it's right on with where it says we should be right now. Okay, what I'm seeing with the subsurface water temperature departures is once that cold water reaches the surface, a rapid decline will start to happen. And I think that means by late June into July, we will reach the official La Nina status, okay? And so the best thing for us to do is analog this in a way that relates to evolution versus actual statuses. So when's the last time we've come out of strong El Niños and gone into strong La Niñas? That's a good way for us to kind of look at this. Regardless, nonetheless, the model continues to paint picture for a strong to perhaps super Niña status by winter. And at this current point in time, I don't have a huge reason to disagree. Maybe it's not this negative, but I still think a La Niña at this point is probable. So that helps us with updated seasonal outlooks. Okay, this is the updated June, July, August preliminary forecasts. Right now we are forecasting really one of the hottest summers we've seen from an energy demand perspective ever. Forecasting currently 1,012 CDDs, okay, cooling degree days, much above normal temperatures here, several heat waves being possible. Due to the nature of where this ridge would probably set up and at times expand, we think there's going to be a surplus in what we call ridge rider thunderstorms or northwest flow storm complexes, where precipitation is flowing out of the northwest in the ag belt in the form of thunderstorm complexes and possibly severe ones, MCSs, or the dreaded term derechos, is what the analog package right now would suggest in that regard. Okay, a wet, stormy pattern, but also a very warm one. Very, very warm, in fact. I'm concerned about some heat. I broke that down into two individual outcomes. The temperature, the overnight low departures and the daytime high departures. The hottest high temperatures might be positioned down in the deep south, where the warmest nighttime low temperatures might be centered in the heart of the grain belt. That's probably going to be due to the nature of where the overall ridge might set up for the summer, okay? Keeping this humid northwest flow aloft, keeping nighttime temperatures high. When the air is moist and humid, nighttime lows are elevated, and especially you can think back to years like 2010, this impacted the yield dramatically. And that is something that we're watching, is very warm nighttime lows this growing season, with some significant spells of heat, especially south and east. The southeastern portion of the ag belt may have a lot more heat than the northwestern portion of the belt. So we broke this down in terms of yields for three different approaches. We looked at PDOs and Niñas, negative PDOs and La Niñas, and they come out to a minus 1.5 trend. Okay, there's only a couple of years where we had a slightly above trend yield, and those have been almost 20 years ago. The last four most recent episodes resulted in below trend yields, 2010 being one of them, 2011 being the other. The ENSO evolution analogs, going from strong El Niño to La Niña, the most recent one being 2016, resulted in a below trend yield. I'm sorry, not 2016, 2020. My apologies. 2016 had an above trend yield. It was actually a good year for a crop. Okay. Before that, 2010. And then we also had 1995 in here. Right now, the ENSO evolution analogs are we're flirting with at or below a trend, right at like just minus 0.3. So we're right at trend, which would be a huge crop if you're looking at just ENSO evolution. The overall analogs, or the selected analogs of choice, come in at minus 1.6 from trend. Okay, and those are I zoomed in too much here, so I can't show you the years. Those would be years like 10 and 11, 95, 2016, and 2007. All right, these 3 years here are what kind of throw that off. But again, the overall general idea right now is that we would have a below trend yield in both corn and soybeans this year based on weather in the latest. And I'll end it with this one. It's the severe weather report frequency in our top analog years. And this is where, again, you can kind of see what I'm talking about, where if we do have some sort of ridge in here, you have to use your imagination a little bit, area of high pressure, where we see a flow this way and also this way, northwest flow thunderstorm clusters, southwest flow aloft here, with thunderstorm clusters, and there being an enhanced or higher number of reports for severe weather this summer than usual based on a frequency analog approach. So every Wednesday, I'll try to talk about these, update you on the thought process, and give you an idea into our latest thinking. All right. I do want to remind you or encourage you to check out Clarity on bamwx.com. In our ag package right now, it's only $750 to access Clarity in its fullest. And everything that it has to offer, you can just check it out at bamwx.com. Share it with a friend. Hope you enjoy the content. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.